Very good evening to everybody. This is a Hackney Council's Licensing Subcommittee A meeting. Welcome everybody, and also those watching us on YouTube. Slightly different start this evening. Normally I would read out the remote meeting protocol first, but we will begin first by actually going to agenda item 1 and electing the committee chair. So if we could elect a committee chair, please.
I propose Councillor Smythe.
Second. Okay, thank you very much for that, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
So welcome to the meeting, everybody. But first of all, just following the death of His Royal Highness the Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, on Friday the 9th of April, as the country has now entered an official period of mourning where there will be a 2-minute silence observed now. Can we now observe a 2-minute silence, please?
That now concludes the 2 minutes. Thank you. I will now read out, I'll read out very promptly and as quick as I can, the remote meeting protocol. I'll try and be as quick as I can. Okay, the remote meeting protocol is as follows. You will only speak when invited to by the committee chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communication via the chair. Will everyone please ensure that their microphones are muted when they are not speaking, apart from the chair, who does not need to mute their mic at any stage. When speaking, please be succinct and do not exceed the allocated time frames highlighted at the start of the hearing and contained within the agenda meeting pack. If you are referring to a specific page or paragraph in the report, please refer to that specific paragraph or page. If you're having any technical difficulties, please use the chat function in Google Meet to alert the meeting to those technical difficulties. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the subcommittee. Any persistent disruptive behavior will result from your removal from the meeting. This next one doesn't actually apply. It says if there's more than one application, we've only got one application this evening, so that point does not apply. Applicants and all other parties will be asked to leave the proceedings after the item on the agenda has concluded. Once all applications have been considered, any remaining parties will be asked to log out of the hearing. Please do so promptly so that the council will have the opportunity to deliberate and make a decision on the application on the meeting agenda. Each party will be notified of the decision within 5 working days. That now concludes the remote meeting protocol. So we can now continue on to agenda item 8, which I believe is apologies for absence.
Okay, so just before we go through the agenda, there is on the inside copy of the report, Amit and Anish, sorry. You should see the agenda there. But before we start that, I'd just like to introduce the subcommittee to you. I'm Councillor Smith. I'm a councillor in Stoke Newington Ward. Councillor Odds, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
I'm Councillor Harvey Odds, Councillor in Springfield Ward.
And Councillor Conway?
I'm Councillor Sophie Conway, and I'm a councillor in Hackney Central Ward.
Great. And then if we could just go through all the rest of the people on the call, please. So start with Gareth.
Gareth Sykes, Governance Services Officer. Everybody was obviously been in contact with me prior to the meeting. I'll be taking the minutes for this evening's meeting.
Great, thank you. And Amanda?
Good evening. My name is Amanda North. I'm a solicitor advising the panel this evening. Thank you.
And David Tuitt, please.
Hi, David Tuitt, Licensing Team Leader.
Thank you. Mario is the technician on the call. Thank you, Mario, for all your hard work. And I think we've got Suba.
I'm Subhashri Ramana, Principal Licensing Officer.
Thank you very much. And I think I've got everyone, as far as I'm aware. Okay, great. So we can move on now. So apologies for absence. Anybody?
Just the one.
Apologies from the councillor who wasn't able to attend, Councillor Patrick.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest there, please, amongst members? None? I take silence as meaning none. Yeah? Okay.
I think it'll be better if they actually answered no, just for the record,
No.
if you don't mind.
No declaration of interest.
Okay, thank you for that, councillors. So the next part of the agenda is minutes of the previous licensing committee meetings, of which there are several there. I have gone through all these minutes. I'm happy and content with them. So unless there's matters arising in the room, I'm happy for us to go ahead and continue with this meeting.
Councillor Smith, could you just say that you approve the minutes, so that it's formally for the record that you approve all the minutes that were presented this evening? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I approve the minutes as
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Great. So now we go through the hearing procedure, which essentially works in 10 steps. So we've appointed the chair. Step 2 is that the licensing officer will outline the report. Step 3 will be the applicant's case. So you will present your case at step 3. 5 minutes each for those. And then step 4 is responsible authorities. They will present their case and their reasons for objecting to the application. 5 minutes again. And then other persons in this meeting, there are no other persons, so we can forget that one. Step 6 then involves a discussion, fairly loose discussion. Then closing remarks is step 7. And then step 8 is final clarification for the subcommittee, who will have a chance to seek clarification if there's any areas that they're still a bit unsure about. And then step 9 is consideration. And then step 10 will be the decision, which we will take and will be available within 24 hours. Is that correct, Gareth? 24 hours?
The initial decision can be communicated within 24 hours.
Yeah.
The actual written decision would come out within 5 working days.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, great. So this is for the application for a premises license at 432 to 434 Kingston Road, London E8 4AA. And I would like to invite the licensing officer, please, to outline the report.
Thank you, Chair. Licensing Service received an application for a premises license under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003 for 432 to 434 Kingsland Road for recorded music, late night refreshment, and to authorize supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises, as stated in the agenda. Only licensing representation remains. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And then if we could have the applicant to present their case, please. I don't know, Anish or Amit, which one or both are going to do this. If you're both going to do it, you would have 2.5 minutes each. If one of you does it, it's 5.
Amit, you're on mute.
Hi. So have you guys worked out how you want to do this?
Yeah, I will lead it, but if Anish needs to jump in, he will.
Okay, I'll put the clock on.
Please do. So the premises is a historically licensed venue. Actually, first of all, could I just remind the committee that I have submitted written further statements in support of the application. And I'll just quickly run through the salient points, just in case they haven't had a chance to be read. But the key thing for us is that the premises itself is a historically licensed venue, which is and has been substantially fitted out to operate as a restaurant. It operated as Kings and Curry's as far back as 2010 before being taken over by Rotorino in 2014. Now, Rotorino forfeited their lease with their landlord for non-payment of rent, and the premises license was therefore not transferred back to the landlord, and the license was forfeited in 2018. Now, for over 3 years, the site's been vacant, and so if our application is successful, our intention would be to invest back into the now relatively dilapidated site and offer an attractive new dining establishment for the local residents. Our aim is to provide an authentic regional Indian restaurant, unlike any which currently exists in Dalston. Certainly encourage respectful drinking of alcohol through high quality curated selections of biodynamic wine and craft beer. And further to this, we've sent in the schedule a sort of mood board of the type of offering that we are intending to provide. We believe the licensing subcommittee should support this application because our ethos and our restaurant's aims are all consistent with the licensing objective. We encourage responsible drinking and a more considerate, sophisticated and knowledgeable approach to eating out. We've also got a proven track record in responsible management of licensed venues, as evidenced by the fact that our first restaurant, which we own and still operate, also exists on Kingston Road. And for over the 7 years of its operation, we've never had any instances of crime, disturbance, or nuisance. Now, further to this, the Metropolitan Police and the Environmental Enforcement Agency have removed their initial representations, further to the updated and revised hours of operation and further licensed conditions, which are set out in full in Schedule 2 of our written submission. And we note, however, that the licensing committee has made representations, and we essentially would like to say that we believe that the site in question will not add to the cumulative impact because it has been a historically licensed venue for many years, well before the Dalston was designated as a special policy area. And in fact, this application will simply restore a historically licensed venue and allow it to operate in a way that was already taken into account when the area was later determined to be in the SPA. We would also say furthermore that this application will in fact reduce the cumulative impact from previous levels because the conditions in Schedule 2 and agreed with the police and the environmental agency are in fact more onerous and restrictive than the most previous license granted to this site. Specifically, unlike the previous license, we've agreed to operate with a food condition such that the service of alcohol will be limited to those taking a table meal from the menu with seated waiter and waitress table service. In addition, we've also agreed to limit the licensable activities to the core hours that are set out in LP3. And if it's of any use, I can draw attention to Schedule 2, which sets out the revised hours and operating conditions, which we think further address the points made above. Anish, do you have anything to add to
that? Nothing to add, just other than just reiterating that we have a substantial experience of running a restaurant in that exact location. Our other restaurant is only about 15 doors along on the same premises. We have a very good track record of upholding the licensing objectives. If this premises license was not to be granted, then the site would likely remain vacant for further years to come, or until a premises license could be granted, is what we would argue. And it's already been, it's a very attractive restaurant site, which has already substantially been fitted out as a restaurant, but has remained vacant for 3 years. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. That was just about 5 minutes on the dot, so very well done.
Thank you. How's the wash going?
So I'd like to invite now David Tuitt, responsible authorities, to basically highlight your reasons, David.
Chair, apologies to interject. The legal officer is raising her hand.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that yet. Thank you, Gareth. I can't see.
Sorry, I just have one question. The applicant mentioned that they had 2 representations in support. Were they submitted to the licensing service in time, or was this something that they've just brought along today?
No, they were made aware well before further written submissions were submitted.
So no, I don't think so. Just to clarify, I don't think we've had licensing representation in support of the application. Maybe there was a miscommunication there. But the Metropolitan Police and Environmental Health have withdrawn their representations.
No, I think you said that you received 2 representations in support of your application. No? Is that correct or not? That's what I'm just trying to clarify.
Sorry, no, that wasn't the case.
That's incorrect. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Okay, so moving on, I'd like to invite Mr. Tuitt, please, to outline your reasons for objecting to this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So my representation's at Appendix B within today's agenda. So essentially set out that the premises is located within the, I make reference to Shoreditch Special Policy Area, but it's actually the Dalston Special Policy Area. The policy wording is the same. So that's a mistake on my part, so apologies for that. But essentially the location is within an area that's been highlighted as having particular issues around crime and order, public nuisance, etc. So it's upon that basis upon which that the premises has been decided to be a special policy area or cumulative impact area. It is correct, as the applicant has said, that there was previously a license at this location, which was surrendered some time ago, and the premises has remained vacant ever since. And the applicant is someone is a party that's known to us, as has been mentioned. They operate a restaurant a few doors down from this site. However, it's just the fact that this premises is within the Dalston Special Policy Area, so that test is being applied to this particular application. I'll leave it there for now, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Now, step 5 is other persons case, and there aren't any other persons here to raise any objections. So we'll move straight on to the discussion, which will be for 15 minutes. Let me just set my clock. And I'd like to invite the councillors, please, to come in with any questions or points of clarification you'd like to make. Before, I've got a few questions myself, but I'd like to introduce you guys to come in and ask some questions.
If I can just ask the applicants, first of all, do you have a name for the restaurant? Because we don't have an actual name on the application, just the address. And which is your other restaurant, please?
The other restaurant we have is called Brilliant Corners. It's a Japanese restaurant on Kingston Road. And the name in question is still being debated between my brother and I. We think we may call it something along the lines of Raga, which is a Indian form of classical music. But we're slightly undecided because there's various pros and cons to that approach.
Right. See, my other question is more along the lines of, you said that you won't add to the cumulative effect because it was historically a licensed premises, but nevertheless it hasn't been for a while, and you haven't actually given any reasons for demonstrating that you won't add to the cumulative effect. Whereas looking at the Google Maps of that block, you've got the Haggerston on the corner, which is a pub. Then you've got Falkland's Fish Restaurant, which says it's licensed, so that's an on license. Then you've got Levissi Express and Yours Locally, which are shops which have off licenses. And then there's another restaurant there which says on its frontage it sells cocktails. Now, whether they're alcoholic cocktails or not, I don't know. But if they are alcoholic cocktails, obviously it has an on license. That's Chicken Sours. So that's 5 other premises that sell alcohol within a short distance. How can you say that with those other premises so near to you, you're not going to add to the cumulative effect? And also, you would probably, I would imagine, from the location of various schools in the area, you would have school children walking past your premises while you're already open. Do you think that that's a good idea?
Okay, yeah, if you'd like to just answer those questions, please, and then we'll get Councillor Conway to come in later.
In respect of the question about adding to the cumulative impact, our restaurant seeks to actually attract people inside the premises for a high quality restaurant meal. It's not designed to provide a sort of short stop that we hope to quickly turn people back onto the street. Our estimation of the venue is that the local area is actually still missing high quality restaurant offerings for the local residents, and so in that regard we would actually be reducing the impact by attracting them and keeping them inside a well-managed premises, which doesn't in any way approve of standing up transient drinking. This is a seated restaurant designed for families and local communities. In respect of the children walking past the venue, well, we do notice that when our restaurant just down the road is setting up, and in fact, we try and provide a positive engagement to that. We make sure the outside of our premises is always tidy, neat. Our staff are trained. Almost 30% of them have personal licenses as well, and so part of running that well-established restaurant is to be able to engage with the local community, and if that's children walking back home, then we do so in a safe and responsible way.
So can I just come back in on the first point?
Yeah.
You said that your idea is to set up a well-run, high-quality restaurant, but part of your application is for off-license. How do you tally those two things together?
Well, the off-license, the premise of the off-license condition was to just provide some extra means of revenue in the event that the pandemic develops in a way where some kind of takeaway is necessary for us to just stay afloat. And furthermore, we've limited that to a time period so that it's not the case that our attempt is to attract people to that aspect of our offering. It's there just as a last resort in case we have to provide for takeaway, and if so, it will still be in sealed containers and be restricted to the wine list that we have on offer inside the restaurant. It certainly isn't a case that we'll be selling bottles of beer or anything that is otherwise available in the other off licenses in that area.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Conway, do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
To be honest, Councillor Odds covered many of them in his first question. I suppose the only question that I had to raise is a bit of a supplementary to what Councillor Odds has already asked, and that was that you speak about the ethos and the aspirations, your ethos as restaurant owners, but also your aspirations for this particular place. And I just wondered what assurances you're able to give, or sort of concrete examples of of how it is that you're going to ensure that the people who frequent your restaurant will embody this ethos. And I appreciate it's an aspiration, but what assurances can we have?
Well, part of the motivation to take on a second restaurant is to provide more opportunities for our staff, our head chef and our front of house team. Many of them have been with us for over 4 to 5 years, and it's time for them to be able to step up and deploy some of the values and ethos that we've trained and instilled into them over the years, and take the reign with our guidance in another establishment where they can grow as professionals and their salaries can grow and they can plan for their future. So this is very much about providing more opportunities for our staff, and our staff are the ones that carry through our ethos and we've worked with over the years, that we feel confident that we could achieve that in a new site.
I think in terms of track record, when we came to the licensing subcommittee in 2014, we were applying for later hours of operation at that point for our existing site, and it was the Dalston SPA was in place, and we were given exceptional status just given the local community support we had at the hearing. So we had over 40 people attend the town hall in support of our hearing, and zero people against. And I think our track record with operating site just down the road, and the fact that we never have any reports of disturbance or nuisance, I think that's kind of what we would rely on to sort of substantiate our ethos and ambitions that we talk about in our submission.
Thank you.
Okay, great. I would like to ask a few questions. I mean, obviously, I want to just clarify this Schedule 2 that was submitted, because I haven't seen sight of that. Is that where did that end up? Can someone help me with that? Gareth or Amanda? Or am I missing something here?
Schedule 2.
Schedule 2 was mentioned by I think it was Amit earlier on. I haven't seen that.
Chair, as far as I'm aware, the only paper that I've published or was received the application report regarding the premises. I've not seen any. I'm not aware of any other supplementary papers.
Okay, so there's something's gone wrong there, but let's just move on for a second. We can sort of deliberate that a bit later. Just on the core hours that you mentioned, that you've basically your activities, you've dropped them to core hours. Can you just elaborate what those core hours are? So just for clarification, so we know exactly what we're dealing with here. I know that if they refer to the ones that are in the papers, then I can see that clearly in front of me. So let me just go through them. So supply of alcohol, Monday to Thursday to 11, Friday and Saturday to midnight, Sunday from 8 to 10:30. Is that correct?
That's correct.
No, sorry.
By 11 to.
We actually changed that to the start time is at 11 a.m.
On the Sunday.
That was on every day as well. Sorry, that's supply of alcohol starts at 11 a.m. every day.
On every day, including Sunday.
Every day, yeah. That was in the agreed conditions which you submitted in as part of Schedule 2.
Okay, so these are the things that we've not seen. So can someone write that down? Gareth, can you make a note of that, please? And then in regards to the off sales, I believe that you're within core hours LP4 going to 11. Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong. My only issue with that is on the Sunday. It starts from 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if that's part of LP4, and I don't want to switch onto another page of my computer because it'll slow me down. Can someone just help me with that?
No, yeah, that's right. That's correct. Yeah.
So I think
so they can start selling off sales from 8 o'clock in the morning on the Sunday.
So actually we had amended that. All sales of alcohol, all supply of alcohol was starting from 11 o'clock onwards.
Okay, and that includes off sales, yeah? Including
off sales.
Yeah, sorry for my misunderstanding on that one. So
right.
Just to be clear. And then we've got the operation of the premises. 8 to 23:45, Monday to Thursday. and then Friday to 12:15. Same with Saturday, and Sunday 11:45. Does that make sense for you or not?
So 8 a.m. to 1:45 midnight, Monday to Thursday is operating. Friday and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 45 past midnight, and Sunday 8 a.m. to 11:15. Yeah.
Right. So those are slightly beyond core hours, right? And it's fairly normal practice for an establishment to maybe stop serving drinks and things half an hour before what you're doing. But I presume that extra time is to clear up and everything. But I just want to talk about the music, because this is quite important, because you do have some residents living above that premises. On the recorded music, you don't need a license up to 11, right?
Yeah.
So you can go up to 11 with music. However, you have asked for a bit longer on here in the report I've got. So Monday to Thursday is to 11:45. Yep. So that's 45 minutes extra.
Yeah.
And then Friday it's 1:45, Saturday's 1:45, and Sunday's 11:15. Now Sundays we like to wind up by 10:30, as you know. Amanda, can I ask you a question about Sundays and recorded music? Can it still go up to 11 on a Sunday without a license?
No, it wouldn't go up to 11 on a Sunday.
Is that 10:30 on a Sunday? Is it?
It's closing at 10:30 on a Sunday, so we would expect it to end before 10:30.
Right.
So 10 o'clock.
Okay, so Anisha or Amit, do you want to talk about the recorded music aspect of these hours? Because that's a concern for me, and I think for other members too.
Sure. So I think at the moment, so the supply of alcohol we've kept within 4 hours, and then we understood that it's reasonable or customary. The Met Police certainly were happy with a half an hour effectively drink up time, whereby from after the supply of alcohol has stopped in the premises, there's half an hour for guests to be able to finish their drinks and leave the restaurant.
In which time you sort of be winding down the sort of.
We're winding down, exactly. So, but what we've just experienced in our existing site is that an abrupt, at the moment that you stop the supply of alcohol, if you immediately turn off all the music, it doesn't necessarily lend itself well to a sort of peaceful, tranquil vacation of the premises, and in fact it causes people to all leave at the same time, whereas actually, given that we are only playing background music, having some background music whilst people finish their drinks and having an extra 15 minutes to not rush people out of the premises is actually usually helpful to not cause congestion at the door. Congestion with Ubers was actually, in our experience, actually is what causes disturbance to the neighbours. So it's not, obviously adding those conditions on don't improve our business revenue in any way, but it's really to be considerate of the neighbours and to be considerate of our customers. And
am I correct in saying that the hours that are on the report that I've just outlined, that the police were happy with those?
Yes.
Yeah. So they were happy that you would have recorded music until 11:45. Sorry, 1:45 on a Saturday.
Yes.
And 11:45 on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't know, members, if you're councillors. I mean, I'm feeling slightly concerned about the Sunday, frankly. I don't know about other members if you want to sort of maybe probe a bit more on the hours.
Councillor Smythe, I'm reading on the report Sunday 11:15 recorded music.
Yeah, from 8 in the morning.
Yeah, but the finish time being 11:15. I think you just said 11:45.
Oh, did I? Maybe I meant Saturday or something.
That's Friday and Saturday. It's 1:45.
1:45, yeah. So how do you feel, Councillor Odds and Councillor Conway, about the Sunday, the hours there? Because normally core hours, basically, we shut up shop by 10:30, right, on a Sunday normally.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question actually on that, in terms of what you just said, Anish, about your experience of sort of stopping music abruptly and the impact that had in terms of the people in the restaurant sort of all leaving at the same time. How does this premises compare to the one that you're currently, the restaurant that you currently have in terms of capacity? Because I appreciate you saying background music, but many of us will appreciate from our experiences at restaurants that if you've got loads of people in a restaurant, that background music can end up being quite loud, and you all end up shouting in order to hear each other. So I imagine that capacity is quite important when we're thinking about what the levels of that background music will be at.
Well, that's a big thing for us. One of our USPs is the acoustic treatment we put into the room, so that it's actually more comfortable and you can actually have a conversation, and you don't have to raise your voice in our establishments. I'd say that's one of our sort of feathers in our cap about the extra investment needed in treating the walls, the ceilings, and all the different hard surfaces to avoid people having to shout. The capacity is similar, although it is a larger space. So
I have agreed the same capacity, despite it being a larger space. We've agreed the same capacity essentially.
Which is?
I think it's 120.
120 people sitting, yeah?
Yes.
Wow. That seems a lot to me.
Was that the fire regs? And the seated covers were something about 100, I believe.
I mean, how many tables can you fit in there? If you look at the plan.
It is a very large site, which is another reason why, in order to vacate 120 people from seated tables, there does need to be some level of staggering of tying up bills and for people leaving the premises in a quite orderly manner. And that's kind of another reason why we thought the extra 15 minutes would actually be very beneficial. But it is, I mean, as restaurants go, it's in terms of square footage, it's probably one of the largest sites in that strip. So, we haven't pushed in by determining 120. We haven't pushed the capacity to pack people in. Our intention is to have people very spaced out and to make it a very comfortable environment. So,
yeah. Can I just ask you how many tables you're going to have in there? Because I noticed you've got 4 toilets at the back, according to your plan.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
That's where the fire exit is at the back. Where does that fire exit go to, just by the way?
There's a street around the back of the restaurant and it leads out through the rear.
Okay. And how many tables can you fit in there? Because I notice a bar here, and then there's another little area with a triangle. Is that another bit of bar there, is it? Or
so the intention is to have between 35 and 40 people seated in the front bar area where we will be serving food, and then in the rear part of the restaurant, our estimation is that you can seat 70 people, which would be through a mixture of tables of 6 and tables of 4. So, I mean, we haven't finalised exactly what the table layout is, but the idea is 4, 6, and 4. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that's good. That's not interesting information. Any of the councillors want to come in on this, on the numbers?
I was just going to say, going back to the point about the background music and noise, that we do have a condition in there, condition 18, no noise, what was it again? No noise shall emanate from the premises so as to cause a public nuisance. Now, in the light of that, would you be willing to amend that condition to include some sort of noise limiter? So that if the noise did go above a certain level, the power would come out.
It would be flipped. I think
so. Yeah, I mean, we've not. What would we say to that?
I mean, I think that's something. If that would, our experiences with we don't want to overcomplicate this discussion, but our experience with noise limiters is that they create a lot of noise in the actual signal path. So are sometimes ineffective in allowing you to transmit. We have a reasonable specialism in audio, and we believe in installing very good quality sound systems, so they can be played. Music can be played very quietly and still be audible. And partly that depends on there being very high quality pieces of equipment throughout the signal path of the music. If you introduce a piece of equipment which is designed for one purpose of limiting but not necessarily transferring high quality audio signal, then it compresses the sound, and therefore you get less, you hear the music less well. But yeah, I understand if that maybe is perhaps a bit complicated for the.
Well,
okay, that's useful information. So I'd stand corrected in what I said.
Yeah, but it would be, we would stand. We have, like I said, with other premises, we've never caused any. We have a good track record of never causing any noise emanating from the premises or causing a nuisance. And I think we've proven that our recorded music management, even our other premises, operates till 1:30 in the morning. And we've proven, even with those later hours, that we're able to manage the premises responsibly without causing any disturbance to the neighbours.
Okay, does your other premises have residential premises above it?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Conway, would you like to come in on the numbers at all?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was quite. I'm just, because it's potentially we're talking about another 120 people. I appreciate it's unlikely to happen, but potentially we're talking about 120 people leaving this premises. That's another 120 people to add on to however many are leaving from your other restaurant. So I appreciate that your track record with that restaurant may be good, but it's not accounting for an additional 120 people. And I just, what's ringing in my ears is just what I think I remember hearing from residents when we were talking about introducing the SPA, and just hearing about people saying that they're trying to get their children to sleep, and it's not so much rowdy revelers outside, but it's more cab doors slamming when your children are trying to sleep. And I just want to try and pin down, how you are going to manage staggering the exits, from the premises, so that it is, the community doesn't feel the impact of 120 people potentially descending on the streets within like a half an hour window.
So Amit, maybe you could talk a bit about our reservation system and how that in itself is staggered through different times, so there isn't an exit and influx of people all at one time in any case.
Yeah, exactly. We set up our reservations and our booking system so that everything is staggered, and that means people arrive in a steady stream, not all at once. And if we've done our job correctly, they also leave in a staggered way. And actually, part of the protocols for our managers is to be able to manage the service in a way that the guests are actually walked, sometimes actually to their actual cab. So they're sort of almost stewarded, along the street. They're reminded when they leave in a friendly way to be mindful of our neighbours. And it's basically our sort of final, it's our last intervention with our customers. And we always seek to do that in a way that for the customers, it shows an extra bit of care that we respect neighbours and the surroundings. But it's also our final way of leaving a good positive stamp on the customer's meal. So we factor into our service protocols, ensuring that customers are taken from their table to the outside in a way that's safe, especially when it's late at night.
I think, although I think understand that it is a large premises and it does require a reasonably large capacity just in order for it to be sustainable to operate the business on that site, because the rent is reasonably substantial. And even the capacity that we're applying for allows for a lot of spaced out tables within the venue, with the idea in mind of creating quite a tranquil, peaceful place to have a dinner in what is already perhaps quite a hectic area of town. So.
Councillor Conway, are you happy with that?
Yeah, I suppose I'm just thinking it's just that door slamming on the cab just that bit later, and it's just how do we justify that in a special policy area? But I feel that you've answered that as well as I think you could have for me. Thank you.
I mean, my issue really, I suppose, is just the music, really, particularly on the Sunday, and even possibly on the Friday and Saturday. I mean, I do appreciate that you brought it in line with core hours for the rest of the activities, and I think that's a wise decision. But I think we need to speak about the musical side, really. I mean, I don't know about the other councillors here, but I'm certainly concerned about that. Can I suggest that you go for 15 minutes extra on Monday to Friday? Sorry, Monday to Thursday. So instead of 23:45, it's 23:15. Saturday 12:15, and half an hour off on the Sunday, and obviously not starting at 8. Because Sundays, you know, we like to finish by 10:30. In fact, I'd push you even further on that to maybe contemplate whether you would actually close at 10:30 on a Sunday. I don't know how you feel about that, but I just thought I'd put it out there.
I think one thing is worth considering is that on Sunday there aren't actually many. Having us both personally live in the area for quite some time, we know there's not actually many good places to eat a decent sit-down meal on that strip of road in particular. There's a lot of people attending the jazz event at the Haggerston pub, which goes on till 3 o'clock in the morning. We think it would be helpful to have somewhere you can come for a meal and finish up slowly and, you know, peacefully, rather than you know, be rushed out. And I think if we were to reduce the operating hours to 20 to 30, then we would then probably have to close up service earlier as well and stop offering food, say around 9:30, which starts to maybe reduce the amount of customers who can take a decent meal. But
okay, so that's good to know. Let's think about the music, stopping that earlier.
Let's think about it. Okay. Sunday. What about if we were to say we were to finish the music at 2300 on Sundays and 23:30 on Monday to Thursday? Would that work?
How does that feel, councillors? Does that feel better to you?
Chair, can I just ask, is the applicant aware of what the core hours under LP3 are? So just so that, you know, in case, I understand that the representations they're making, however, I don't know whether they're aware of what our standard hours usually are.
Yes, we are.
Under LP3, because it says Sunday 10 till 22:30.
Yes.
Is that what, I mean, do you understand that that's the LP3
I think
requirement? Also, because you are in a special policy area.
Yeah, we do understand that. I guess the case we're just trying to make for is actually that it perhaps is counterintuitive to have the supply of alcohol to immediately cease at the same time as music ceases. We understand that that's what core hours are, but we're asking, given in the context of background music and the commitment to not make any noise nuisance to surrounding neighbours and a track record of doing so, we're asking for some concession just for a bit of time to allow customers to finish up slowly without being forced out abruptly.
And Amish, how much time do you think they need? Because at the moment you're giving them 45 minutes. You've
45
minutes.
So I'm saying
half an hour.
So if we can drop it to half an hour, I think that would be helpful. But as I think, as we mentioned before, there is a lot of potentially, if it's a full restaurant and we're staggering bookings, we don't want our staff to feel overwhelmed in escorting people out of the restaurant. We don't want the customers to feel overwhelmed in having to leave quickly. So I think half an hour of music playing in a tranquil environment will help things move along smoothly. Then an extra 15 minutes to vacate the premises.
I mean, that feels slightly better to me. I mean, I'm not completely happy, but how do the other councillors feel?
Sorry, Chair, I just wanted to ask, what are the closing times for your existing restaurant?
So we close at midnight Monday to Thursday. We close at midnight on Sunday, and we close at 1:30 on Friday and Saturday. And I should also just mention, in respect of the Sunday, it's a long stop that we have asked for that extra period of time. In fact, on a Sunday, our staff are actually trying to close up as soon as possible. It's not the case that we're trying to drive business towards later services on a Sunday. In fact, there's so many closing down procedures to do on a Sunday that, in fact, the earlier the customers, our last reservations wind up, the better for us. It's just giving us a bit of wiggle room so the staff don't feel burdened by what they have to do during a Sunday service.
Yeah. Councillor Odds.
I'm somewhat reassured by that, although I still have doubts about going beyond core hours.
Yeah. So I suppose
Chair, if I can just ask if you could clarify with the applicant about the opening hours, because obviously they're still quite on the application. It's still showing 8 o'clock in the morning for opening, and then obviously the closing times again. So I think could we clarify those again?
I think you mentioned it was all 11, wasn't it? Start times.
Yeah, they said 11, but I just want to make sure that they know that they're saying that the opening hours will be from 11. I don't think they mentioned that bit. They mentioned the alcohol, but they didn't mention the opening hours.
Can you clarify, please, Anish or Amit?
So if that would lend itself to if that would be preferable to the licensing subcommittee, we could change the operating hours to 11 a.m. That would be helpful. But if that's a concern, I think that was mainly put down in the application because people come in to do some office work early in the morning sometimes. So whether that is deemed to be operating in any way, or if we're hosting meetings there whilst there's no supply of alcohol, or it was just purely for that purposes. So if recorded music and operating hours are moved to 11 a.m., that's completely fine with us.
Yeah, well that sort of makes sense in some way.
Would it be agreeable to, if we were to take 15 minutes off the recorded music and move the operating hours forward to 11 on every day of the week, would that be more agreeable to the council members?
It's certainly a bit more agreeable, but we're still pushing for a bit more.
Okay.
If I was perfectly honest.
I think Sunday's closing is the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the Sunday one's a bit of a concern. I mean, obviously, it's our job to make sure that there's no public nuisance, so we're trying to avoid that. And we haven't got hard evidence on the table here that you are responsible operators. You can tell us that till the cows come home. But we haven't, we need to see the evidence. But, we trust you. So there you go.
How about maybe if we agreed a concession on Sunday to restrict Sunday to restraint core hours with recorded music? Amit, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think the suggestion to shave off 15 minutes from the operating hours on Sundays is fine and workable.
Core hours is 22:30, however.
Yeah,
that would be moving it quite a bit earlier. I'm just,
At the moment, your music goes on to 11, so you would stop serving at 10:30, and then you'd have half an hour extra for the music up to 11.
Okay.
It would probably make us happier. Maybe you could restrict that to 15 minutes or something, possibly.
Sure,
that would be workable. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going now to.
Can I just come in? I don't see where your 4 hours is coming from.
4 hours.
Sorry, can you clarify that, Harvey?
Yeah, I don't understand. You said you were going to restrict the Sunday to 4 hours. What 4 hours are you talking about? Sorry.
Apologies, I meant to say
11 till 11 at the moment, 11 till 11:15 at the moment. That's 12 and a quarter hours.
I think they meant core hours. I think they said
Core
the word
hours.
core hours, but I think it sounded like
Sorry.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Sorry.
Core hours.
Oh, fair enough. Okay.
Okay, so what we've got then so far is on the music, we have 11 to 23:30, Monday to Thursday. We have Friday to Saturday, 11 to 12:30. Yeah, and on a Sunday we have 11 to 22:45.
Yes.
For the music, yeah.
Yes.
Amanda, would you like to take a note
Could
of
you say
that?
that Sunday one again? 22:45, was it 11?
Yeah, let's listen to the music. So 11 to 22:45. And I'd just like to ask councillors how they feel about those hours. Are you happy and content with that?
I would probably be willing to agree to that.
And Councillor Conway, how do you feel about it? Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's okay. I think, as I said, I much like what the chair has already said, I do trust, based on what you said, that you do have this proven track record. But it would have been really quite encouraging for us this evening to have some really concrete evidence of how you deliver each of these things, because I think we need to be able to be confident that we can make an exception in this instance and deviate away from core hours in this instance, whereas we probably wouldn't do in others. Yeah, I'd be happy to go with the consensus.
My only concern, my major concern is with it, as with any other license, we have to allow for the fact that it's the premises that are licensed, not the operators. And there is a possibility of the premise being sold on, and we have no guarantees in that case. I mean, we obviously realise that you are opening your premises to run it, not to sell it, but we have to take that into account. So that's something that we always do bear in mind.
Yep. Thank you for that, Councillor Odd. I mean, one thing I would like to explore as well is the off sales. Because obviously that's a bit of a concern for me, people coming off the street and buying alcohol. Would you be open to having a condition put on there that says you can only serve alcohol for off sales, to take off the premises from people who are already in the premises eating?
Yes, we would.
Yeah?
Yes.
Because
yes.
that would help. So Amanda, can you just note that condition? We can draft that up and put that in there with your consent, obviously. What was the other thing I was thinking?
Chair, can I just say though that the applicant has suggested that they would like to offer delivery, takeaway, etc., isn't it?
Oh, food.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that would be. Is that people walking in off the street and buying a takeaway, or how does that work?
So I guess we were thinking of the in the context of the pandemic, many restaurants that were forced to close, turned to Deliveroo and were selling as well as with their meal a bottle of wine, and that was actually the purpose of that provision. Having said that, given things are looking more optimistic, at the moment we're happy to if forego that ability to restrict off sales.
But I presume that sort of service would have worked online, whereby people would order online.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Then they would either come and click and collect or whatever, or they would order a Deliveroo or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what I'm talking about is people coming up, people just walking down the road and then thinking, right, and walking in. That's what I'm trying to stop.
Yeah. Sure. So perhaps if it could say that off sales will only be permitted via takeaway delivery services, or otherwise from
existing customers
who have attended the restaurant.
Yeah,
that would be workable for us.
Yeah, Amanda, can you please make a note of that?
Yes, I've made a note already. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well done. Thank you. Okay, so the last thing I think I want to speak about is you mentioned you had a fire report on the numbers, on the capacity. Can you just talk me through that a little bit? Because I'm still thinking that 120 is a lot. So I just want to kind of explore and dig a little bit more around the numbers.
I mean, the space as it stands is 2,400 square feet, so it's quite a substantial space. I think my understanding is that the previous restaurant actually used to get in excess of 120, and then maybe close to 140, given the space that's available. We've had only an initial assessment, a fire assessment done. To be honest, a lot has given the uncertainty over this premises license up until this point. we haven't really had the confidence to be able to commit to substantial, space of the premises.
And the next question that I'd like to ask Amish, sorry for interrupting there, is the kitchen capacity, is it enough to provide for 120 people? So 120 mouths to feed a lot of people if that restaurant's full. I mean, can you accommodate all those people?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the kitchen's actually very large, and it was one of the things that really attracted us to the sites. So there's it has sort of state-of-the-art extraction flue already built in from obviously previous tenants, which can easily accommodate.
And in your experience, would you say that would that place ever be full at 120? I mean, would you be full to capacity regularly? Would you say?
Hard to say in this climate. We would hope so, but only ever in a way that would make the atmosphere comfortable and an environment that our staff could enjoy operating. And the moment it starts to feel uncomfortable, we would be restricting numbers in a different way.
Yep. And that number of 120, how did you come up with that?
So that was from doing a rough measurement of the existing floor plan. So we walked around the floor plan, we put examples of where tables were going to go, made sure they were spaced out sufficient distance apart, did a rough drawing with our architect of where things could be positioned, essentially, and that's.
So sorry, just for clarification, did you say socially distanced tables?
So I mean, part of we started negotiating this lease and have been progressing it during the pandemic. So again, given the space, we had factored into one of the things that attracted us to it was there's enough space to actually have socially distanced tables inside the premises.
Right, and at the socially distanced sort of level, is it economically viable? I mean, it's not a question I really should be asking as a licensing person, but can you function at social distance?
I think it's in our existing restaurant. It's not, but that premises is a lot smaller. So this space is actually bigger, and potentially it could be viable.
So how many people could you fit in with socially distanced tables then?
In the current site?
No, in the new one. This new one.
New site. So sorry, go on.
It's approximately 60 or 70, depending on the arrangement.
Right.
If you restrict with the 2 meter rule, it goes down to about 60 or 70. But I think from what we're gathering, actually ventilation is the key way to mitigate against less space between tables.
I mean, because you mentioned a kind of comfortable environment and all the rest of it, which I really appreciate. You mentioned sort of background music, which will be contained and it won't cause nuisance to anyone, so that's great as well. But the whole fact, and Councillor Conway mentioned this, 120 people is quite a number of people, So is there any room there for movement on the capacity issue? I mean, in other words, would you consider dropping that, or is that completely unfeasible?
It's more the case that our current venue, which we know is 120, and we never have 120 people literally on site at the same time. There's a constant through flow. It's just to manage the event that if there are some big groups that come at some point, and sometimes we put our private dining room can seat 20 people at one go. So there may be a time when that many people are on premises, but it's captured, not really permissible. So on that basis, and given the fact that the Rotorino site is much larger, I'm not so certain that we'd actually have 120 people on the site physically. Our bread and butter. I think that would be only during peak time and during changeovers when we're turning tables.
Yeah, so you need to really do a good job in persuading us that this is going to be well managed. That number of people, if that number of people ever are on that premises, that this is going to be managed well, which you've kind of gone into a bit already. I don't know how the other councillors feel about these numbers. For me, I feel
So I just wanted to ask, you mentioned a figure of 2,400 square feet. Does that include the kitchen area, or is that just the restaurant area?
That does include the kitchen area.
So roughly, without the kitchen, what would that roughly that square footage be?
Roughly the seating area is, I think, around 1850 square feet. I can't say exactly, but there is it is a very large premises and commands quite a significant rent as a result. The last restaurant, Rotorino, despite being very successful, forfeited their lease because they found the rent to be too high. Only in the context of the current pandemic has the landlord agreed to give us a shot at occupying the place, investing in it, try and build a sustainable business from it. And I think if we manage to make the space successful and profitable, we would, and in order to sort of allow the commercial model to work, we really would need that capacity so that at peak times on Fridays and Saturdays, we can have a full restaurant. And I think if we were to limit ourselves there, we might be turning away potential customers and potentially inhibiting the ability for the business to be viable in that space. It does command also a much higher rent than that we're paying at our existing site as well, because of the additional 35% increase in size.
And to also add to the point about running a well managed site, given the fact that it is larger, I mean, we have to do that for our staff. If our staff start to feel that they're in an environment which isn't run well, which feels stressful, which feels unmanaged, which feels chaotic, we don't have a team to be able to operate our business. So everything about sort of trying to evidence our commitment to a well-managed restaurant is it's incumbent that we have that, because otherwise we wouldn't have a team that we could even consider opening a second site.
I was going to say, furthermore, in terms of track record of managing large crowds, we have also for 2 years in 2018, 2019, operated a 500 capacity space in Hackney Wick in Tower Hamlets. So we're well experienced with and have a well experienced workforce which knows how to manage crowds responsibly. So that was a 10,000 square foot space, which was a licensed venue already. And it was just, I think, just using that as an example of our track record of experience of being able to cope with large numbers of people. This is obviously a different type of business, a more, what is to be a more peaceful, like, restaurant environment, but nevertheless, I think, just given if that's a concern from the committee, I just wanted to add that to our sort of CV in terms of experience.
Well, our main concern really is the fact that you're in an SPA, a special policy area, and I mean, I am still concerned about the numbers, and I'm still a little bit concerned about the cumulative impact based upon those numbers. Can I bring in Councillor Odds and Councillor Conway just to speak about these numbers? Because I think it's important we kind of nail this if we can.
In terms of what we were saying before about the square footage, working on the basis of 1,800 to 1,900 square feet at 120 people, that's approximately 15 square foot per person, which is a sort of 4 by 4 foot by 4 foot area, which is a fair amount of space. But again, as Councillor Smith said, and Councillor Conway said initially, it's the effect of those people coming out onto the street. I'm reassured by your attitude to how you conduct, how you would take your customers, see your customers out of the premises. However, as I did say, there is the aspect of it's a premises license rather than an individual license. On the whole, I'm very much reassured by what you've said.
Thank you, Councillor Odds. Councillor Conway?
I don't
trying
think
to get a feel for this.
Yeah, I think much like Councillor Odds, I don't think that my issue so much is the capacity, but it's just more about, am I satisfied that you have been able to sort of evidence how you will manage an additional potential, it's more than 120 people across the space of an evening. you know, and I know that many of them will be local, but there'll also be another number of people who will be coming from further afield, who will be taking cabs and buses and lingering around outside while they wait for cabs and buses. And I'm struggling to see how that wouldn't have a cumulative impact.
I mean, things that we could do from an operating point of view is hold people inside until their cabs arrive, and you know, ensure that the person at the meet and greet escorts them to their cab, or we can work to ensure that cabs pull up, you know, on the other side where the Jago is, where there's less residents, where there's an existing licensed venue there. You know, those are the types of things that we'll do to, you know, make to ensure that we stay on good terms with our neighbours. The neighbours seem to be in support of our application, didn't file any representations. We think that we're actually giving 120 people who might be coming to the area anyway a substantial table meal in a you know, considerate environment. With people, whereas otherwise they might, you know, as anyone might experience, might be in the pub and find that the pub menu is finished or insubstantial, as it already is in the Haggerston, and that's often what causes the disturbances that lead to things like the SPA. So I think actually we're kind of saying we will be taking, although it's a large number of people, we'll be improving the evening for them and also for the local residents who live there.
I mean, the other consideration, obviously, is the amount of noise that 120 people would make while sitting in a restaurant talking, even if the music's low. You know, I mean, can you make us an offer on the numbers? I'm just being very direct here. I know it's tough. It would make me feel, personally, I would make me feel a bit more comfortable if the numbers were a bit lower. I can suggest a figure.
Sorry, Chair. Or I personally would be reassured if you could just provide us with some details of how you stagger things, because I appreciate that you said that you do, but what does that look like, so that we can sort of hold you to that, so that we don't run the risk of having 120 people exiting a restaurant within half an hour.
Oh, I see. Okay, well,
that's just me. Sorry, I appreciate that the chair's position may be different.
Well, the acting maitre d' for service orchestrates when bills go down for all the different tables, and it's not necessarily the case that you know, the bills, we get all the bills down when it's half an hour before. In fact, we specifically time it so that the PDQ machines themselves, because they are in limited supply, they have to go in a measured way, and bills have to be returned to the manager in a staggered way. And part of it actually is the manager, who's often at the front of the restaurant, checking in on that table, asking them how the meal was. And so that's that final stage where the manager then gets to escort the guests out. So there's a whole sort of chain of events that happen to make sure that happens one by one, because the manager's final comment on how the relevant customer's meal went, or any feedback, also makes it into our end of night reports. And in respect to the question of the numbers, I guess the only reason why we're reluctant is just for potentially one-off events. A big way, often in the summer, when, you know, our sales go down because people aren't as interested in indoor venues anymore, are to be able to host, you know, wedding receptions and one-off events, which changes the way we do service. And certainly we still run in a well-managed way, but it does mean that we can accommodate one-off bigger bookings that just help us get through the summer. And that's the point I'm making about the numbers. But if we were to reduce it, I mean, I guess we could make it work with that.
Can I just come in here for a second, Amanda? Is it possible? Would it be possible to have a condition whereby, I don't know, you know, over the summer months they can go up to 120, other periods they sit at around, I don't know, whatever it is, 90 or 100 or whatever? Is that a possibility?
I don't think we should. I don't think we've never had a condition of that nature. Right. The most we do is having a condition for a certain number of people outside and a certain number of people inside. But I'm not aware that we would have a, you know, the only time I can think of is we did have one actually where in certain summer months they had a sort of limit to that. But
I think
I can ask the licensing officer whether or not, or Mr. Tuitt, whether or not that would be acceptable in this instance for this particular site, because I think it does depend also on location.
Yeah, good idea. Mr. Tuitt, what do you think?
Can I just come in at that point? Can I ask the applicants, these one-off events, how much notice do you have of them normally? Are we talking a day, a week, a month?
They're often booked well in advance.
So
I should say they also plan. It's not just the summer, really. It's events across the year which help us manage.
So theoretically, these one-off events, you could actually apply for a temporary event notice just to cover the event and have the general numbers lower.
I think just to sort of dive in on that, I think the model of 120 people really is, we based our financial models on that capacity and the ability to fluctuate to that number as and when there's sort of peak times. And given the size of the space, as you've said, 4 foot square per person, there's more than enough space for individuals in there. But it's actually, you need to be able to have that many covers in the restaurant for it to be actually economically viable. I think if you start to limit that, it is really tough to run a restaurant at the moment. I mean, it's got increasingly more difficult. Margins have got even tighter over the last 5 years, and I don't doubt that it'd be any easier over the next 5 years. So I'd be really, really reluctant to inhibit, to add any conditions which potentially would negate revenue opportunities, which might make the site unviable. We don't have any investors. All the money that we're putting into this is our own earned. It's our own. It's everything we have essentially, and I think, and it still carries a huge risk, particularly in these times, to bring a site of that size, completely restore it, and make it an asset to the community. So I think, whilst we don't want to be difficult on the capacity numbers, I mean, the economic models that we've already run, based on the amount that we're having to invest into getting the restaurant up to scratch, I'd be just very concerned about conceding to that without going back to our accountants and running the whole model again. Because even 5 people that we turn away on a Saturday night, that number does accumulate. That's maybe a couple £100 of a bill that you lose every Saturday, perhaps every Friday and Saturday, and that adds up over the course of a 15-year lease.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, sorry. Whilst I understand what the applicant's saying through the chair, I just wanted to remind members that you cannot consider financial circumstances or financial considerations. Whilst we do sympathise with their circumstances, we can't take that into consideration as a factor for making your decision. So apologies to make that point.
Understood.
Okay, well, Anish, you've made your point there. You've been given the opportunity to think about the numbers, and that's what you've come back with. So that's where we stand. I think we've spent now, an hour actually, on the discussion. Does somebody want to come in? Did I hear someone want to come in?
Is there some? Sorry,
you go.
I was going to say, is there anything that we could concede in terms of the ushering of guests out of the premises that would be, workable from an operations point of view, but that we could commit to, that would give you the peace of mind that we're allowing people to leave the premises in a safe way? So, for example, our other venue, we do have is there something that we could commit to in terms of escorting customers? I'm just trying to think out loud, but sorry.
That's what I was thinking, Chair, actually, whether, Amanda, I don't know, do we have any sort of precedent for this sort of thing? Like, I know that you mentioned the numbers of people outside versus inside. Can we say that, because I'm sorry, but it's added to my concern knowing that you will be holding events potentially, or because that means that it's highly likely that there will be a number of days in a year where you will have 120 people all in the premises at the same time, potentially leaving around the same time. So for me, actually, the numbers are less of an issue. It's just how that those people exiting the premises is managed. Do we have any sort of examples of good practice here?
Yeah. Well, normally this would be we would be considering things like security staff, possibly, or for them to commit to saying that some staff will be managing that area to ensure that it's staggered, the dispersal. And also, I don't know, Mr. Tuitt, whether or not a dispersal policy is needed or not, or is that excessive in this case? So I don't know. I mean, I appreciate that it's difficult for them to maybe commit to certain numbers of people. I don't know, or whether or not it's going to be assessed on a week-to-week or day-to-day basis.
I think we could commit to a dispersal policy and to having a member of staff ensure that the dispersal of patrons is organised in an orderly fashion, which does not disturb local residents.
Yeah.
So I think we'd be happy to commit to that. As I said, it's already part of our business model anyway, and giving customer a good experience. So we'd be happy to put that in print and add it to the conditions.
Right. Mr. Tuitt, you were going to say?
No, I'd agree with the applicant there. I think a dispersal policy is fine. Managed dispersal. I don't think security staff would be appropriate.
Okay.
Okay, so I think.
So, Mr. Tuitt, just to clarify, we don't need a condition then for staff to assist with the dispersal, or do you think that's not necessary?
I think staff can help with managing
with the dispersal, yeah, but not SIA.
Not necessarily. I
And
think that would be up to
policy,
the applicant if they want to.
yes.
That should be a condition.
Okay, and the dispersal policy would need to be submitted to the satisfaction of the licensing authority. Would the applicant be happy with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, folks, I think we've reached the end of the discussion. If everyone's happy.
Yeah, sorry, one more point is that I wanted to double check that condition 14 would need to be amended because of the off sales hours being amended. Currently says 8 o'clock, so I'll be changing it to 11.
Yeah.
11 to 2300 hours Monday to Saturday, and 11 to 2200 hours on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. And I wanted to also ask, I'm sorry to ask, double checking on these points in case it's wrong. The opening hours, because obviously to match up with the other conclusion of the licensable activities, the opening hours will be members. I don't know if you wanted it to still be 8 o'clock because they were saying they had early morning meetings, or did you want to compromise and do a sort of later time before 11 to give them the opportunity, or do you want it to be 11 to 23:30 Monday to Thursday, and 11 to midnight 30 Friday and Saturday, and Sunday 11 to 2300, or did you want it to be slightly early? Because you
I think 11's fine. If you want to have meetings that are not operational meetings kind of before that, then that's up to you, isn't it? I mean, but
yeah, but the thing is that the opening hours, it will affect whether or not they can open to have those early meetings, etc. They would need to.
No, I think opening hours refer to sort of public, don't they?
That's right. We're talking about opening hours open to the public. If
Public,
the site's used for private activity meetings, that's not something that concerns us.
That's fine. So just to clarify with the applicants, it wasn't public meetings or anything before 11 that you referred to earlier?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Yeah, it'd be fine to concede to
11. That's fine.
11. Yeah, that's fine.
And so there, I'm putting down then 11 to 23:30 Monday to Thursday, Friday and Saturday 11 to midnight 30, Sunday 11 to 2300 hours. Is that actual members? I don't know if that's what you're thinking as well, because just to tally up with the other operational hours.
Yeah, that ties in with the music and stuff. Yeah. Great.
Good. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Amanda, for that. Okay, we've spent a long time on this discussion, and obviously we've allowed for that time so we can come to some kind of resolution over this. So now we go on to step 7, which is closing remarks. So I'd like maybe Mr. Tuitt to come in, closing remarks. Amanda, yes?
Sorry, just one last question. Just want to clarify, you didn't decide on a capacity condition in the end, is that correct or not?
Yeah, that's correct at the moment,
No.
yeah. So they want to stay at 120. That's their call.
Okay.
Okay, so Mr. Tuitt, would you like to have some closing remarks?
Nothing really to add, Chair. I think we've heard a lot from the applicant. They've made a pretty strong case, so nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay, closing remarks from Anish and one last opportunity to consider these numbers.
Just maybe to allay some concerns you made about when you license the establishment, not the operators. Just to say that this isn't a business that we're looking to sell on. I left my legal career 10 years ago to find something that was more meaningful for me, and this is my life and career, and I'll be working in that restaurant for many years to come. So if that provides some assurance about who you're licensing, then I'm glad to have made that clarification.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Anish, do you want to say anything?
Nothing further to add. Thanks for your time.
Okay, fantastic, great. So now we move on to agenda item 7, which is temporary event notices. There are no 10s for consideration on this hearing. So now we can officially close the meeting, and we will ask all those present to leave. And thank you very much for your time. Thank you for the application. And we will now consider our verdict, and you will hear, I believe, within 24 hours, if you wish.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.